Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be using this Big and Bold perfume bouquet by the Colorado Craft Company to make a birthday card. Actually for my sister. Her birthday just passed in December and I wanted to, I think it was just a pretty image, I guess is what I was looking for, and I really liked the sentiments that were with it. Plus, as we've talked about before, trying to be quicker with my card making. Something this large makes it so I really don't have to do much else on my card because it's a great focal point. I can do coloring just like I like to do, and I didn't really have to do anything else to have a pretty card. So I'm going to be inking this up in black, stamping it down. This is alcohol safe ink because I am going to be using my Copic markers. I think I did end up stamping it twice because this is the first time that I have used this set. So when I first stamped it down, even though I CPR'd it to death, there's a lot of little detail in these flowers. And so I did stamp it twice. Here is, you know how sometimes things just don't, you're trying to be quick about it and move on with your life. I wanted it to be a 1-layer card. And so I was not going to mask the background. I knew I was going to color my flowers red. Red is my sister's favorite color. And I didn't think that the light blue background I was going to put on it would interfere with the coloring too much. So I just opted to skip the masking. However, I wanted the label on the perfume bottle to be white. So I was going to mask just that section. So I stamped down this little happy birthday to you, and it's got like the number symbol, you know, like how the fancy perfumes do. I don't wear fancy perfume, so I don't really know what they're supposed to be. But I figured I would be in a better position if I stamped them by hand. And so I did. These little numbers are very small because they're meant to fit in there. And it totally was not, like they did not line up. They were crooked because I was stamping them by hand. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stamp the, this is leftover from my Christmas video, if you couldn't tell. So I'm like, I'm just going to stamp them again, and then I'll stamp the square over it and trim it out. I had to stamp these numbers so many times, y'all, to make them even and look correctly. I think I did it like 3 or 4 times. And even then, because they were like at a slight angle, I had to stamp my birthday label at a slight angle and then my square at a slight angle so that I could get them where it was straight on my card. Like, it was a rough go. Sometimes it just happens like that. There's another video that I'll have coming up soon that has a bunch of die cutting on it. And y'all know that I struggle with the die cuts. Even though I think they're totally beautiful, I just struggle with the tiny pieces parts. And this was one of those things for me. Like, it was a struggle. I don't really know why. So here, I'm trying to get this lined up. I realized I don't like the 3 and the 5 are too far apart. I did not like it. And so I did end up stamping it again, but I don't even know if I filmed that portion just because I had my camera running for so long. I don't even know if I filmed that, but I didn't like how far apart they were, so I just did them again. But for this one, I trimmed it out, and then I took a water-based marker, not a alcohol ink marker, a water-based marker, and then just went around the edges. And then once my ink blending and stuff my coloring is done, I will just go ahead and glue this down on top of my perfume bottle, and you won't even really know. So for the background, like I told you, I didn't even do any masking because I was like, it's not going to be a big deal. The bottle is see-through, you know, so you should be able to see the color behind it. And then the flowers, I was going to do red, so I didn't really think like that would be any big deal. Here's the problem that I ran into, and you can see it on the screen. I didn't wait for my ink to dry completely, and I am smearing it as I am going over it with my lightest color. I did do a little bit of ink smearing. Now, most of the time, this would be enough for me to go ahead and start over, but I got a couple of things on my side. First things first, I don't have any time. I don't have a lot of time to redo, to start over, to make it perfect. Second of all, I always outline all of my images, so I wasn't worried that the image would be blurry. I knew once I went back over it that it would be still big and bold and you would be able to see all of those lines. So I wasn't worried about that. And I was like, you know what? Background's a background. Like if there's a little bit of gray in there, I'm fine with it. I'm going to be okay with it. I'm just going to accept it and move on. So that's what I did. As far as coloring the bottle goes, I wanted it to look glass. I did not. Now you could add in like another color so that it looks like there's the perfume that is sitting in there. I chose not to do that. I just colored it as if it was a clear glass bottle. So you can see that I'm leaving, when I'm adding my darker colors, I am leaving a edge of lightness. So I'm leaving like a gap between the line and where I'm adding my shading. And this is going to help give my bottle some dimension and some shape. And then I'm going to work out to some darker colors, especially at the top where the bottle is smaller. It would be a little bit darker. It wouldn't be as clear see-through. So I went through and did the 3 colors I had originally intended, and it didn't have enough contrast. So I took it up a notch, because that's what you have to do. Sometimes you have to go a little bit darker. And my darkest color is a B06, which is still a pretty medium shade. It's not a super dark color, but we're coloring glass, so you don't want it to be, too dark. And then I'm just doing the same thing. It's probably easier to see with the darker colors because it's not blending so much into the background. And then there's lines that are drawn at the side of the bottle. And so I just kind of filled those in. I know this is not helpful as far as teaching goes, but I just kind of filled them in here and there with lighter and darker colors. I know some people want to do exactly A, B, C, D. And unfortunately, this time around, that's just really not possible because I did just pick certain areas to fill in dark and pick certain areas to fill in light. The inside of it is a little bit more structured there, if that's a good word for it. So once I was happy with how that looked and that I was getting some dimension out of the blues that I chose, I decided not to add in any extra color for, to fill in the perfume. I just left it as is and I was happy with that. I did add a little bit of an outline around my flowers into the background, just to kind of make them stand out a little bit more so that they didn't blend in as much, since I did get that little bit of smearing that was going on. Like I said, normally that's not something that I would leave or do, but I think really by the end of the card it is not very noticeable. You'll have to tell me what you think when you're looking at it. So I outlined it, and then I'm going through with the next lightest blue to just kind of blend that out, and then one more time with the lightest blue that I own, which is a B00, and that's really just to blend it out. Here, I'm going to color the label. I wanted it to look white. I did get a little heavy-handed, like straight up. I'm not going to lie to you. I got a little heavy-handed with my grays just because it was such a small image, and I broke my own rule and started with my darkest color, which I should not have done, but I did. So because I knew I was going to pop it up, I did color in on the card, just did like a little outline of gray. And I ended up filling in the whole thing gray. I didn't leave very much white at all because I got heavy-handed with my darkest color. In order to fix that, I'm going to go back in with my colorless blender with the 0 marker, and I'm just going to go over the whole thing, but especially the middle, to kind of remove some of that color. And then I went back in with my darkest and just did one line and one line on each side. It still looks pretty gray at this point, but it is still wet, so just hang tight. You'll see at the end of the card how it actually looks. My sister's favorite color is red. I've told you this, and so I knew that I was going to do all of my flowers red. I went back to what I knew, lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, and kind of added in the shading. This stamp is so easy to figure out where you need to put the shading because it's already drawn in there. I know a lot of people get really overwhelmed by detailed stamps, but really the detail in them kind of guides you on where to put your color. So don't let them intimidate you. Just, kind of take their hand and let them lead you where you need to go as far as your shading goes. There's nothing wrong with that. If the illustrator has given you kind of like blazed the trail for you, you know what I mean? You don't want to go too far out of the box, or the image might look a little bit strange. As far as life goes, obviously you can hear me sniffling. My apologies. I have the allergies. We went from, it was like 50 degrees here on Christmas. It was like 50 degrees here on New Year's. And then last night, the rain turned to snow, and now I have snow in my yard, and it's 26 outside. The weather has no idea what on earth it is doing. And so consequently, my face has no idea what it's doing. My sinuses have no idea what they're doing. We did get together for New Year's, decided to celebrate my sister's birthday then. And so that was super fun to get together. We played games. We're a game playing family if you've watched my video before. So on Christmas, we played this game that was like 80s, 90s trivia questions. And so you could pick between movies, music, TV, sports, and pop culture. We played Girls Against Guys. And of course, they always went sports. We tried to mix it up a little bit. But it was super fun. There's always like one person who just comes out of the blue with an answer that you didn't even know anybody knew. And so the question was, what was the name of Madonna's first greatest hits album? That was the question. I have no idea who would know this. I know a lot of music and movie trivia. Album like that one, like her greatest hits. I can't help you. And my sister's boyfriend, Jerry, out of left field, comes up with the answer, which I think it was like the Immaculate Conception or something like that. And just out of the blue, like, I'm like, what? And then we were all floored. Like, why do you know that? Like, he's like, Madonna is a performer. And I was like, yeah, she is. And I'm not trying to take away her talent. I'm just shocked that you are such a fan that you know the name of her first greatest hits album. But on the flip side, they had something that was like, one of the sports questions was something about a golfer. I can't even remember what it was. And my dad was like, right off the cuff, knew that one. And he was like, well, the other two never won. And I was like, how do you keep that information in your head? But probably because I don't really care about sports, and so I don't pay attention to that, because I personally feel like they're ridiculously overpaid to throw a ball around. That's just me. I know it's not necessarily a popular opinion, especially not amongst fans, but I'm not a fan. But so we played that game, and that was super fun. And then the next one that we played was one that I actually got for Christmas. It was called like Incoherent Sentences. It was the family edition. So it was fun for all, and Peanut did play along with us. But basically the premise of that game is you read the card. The card has like nonsensical words on it. And you have to say the phrase and then guess what the phrase is trying to say. I wish I could remember one of them to give you as an example. But they were like band names and fast food restaurants. They were common sayings. song titles. So you would read them, and then the other people would have to guess. Originally, we started out doing it as teams and couples, but that was not as fun. So we switched to like a free for all, where we did boys versus girls again. And that way everybody could just kind of shout them out, which in my opinion is a way more fun way to play games like that. So we did that, and my wonderful mother cooked both days, which was very much appreciated, because then obviously that means it's a day that I don't have to cook, and I'm always grateful for that. I do enjoy cooking, but it's one of those things that nobody ever tells you. Nobody ever wants to tell you what they want for dinner. Nobody ever wants to make a choice. So you're the person who's perpetually picking what you have to make for dinner, and sometimes you just run out of ideas. Like you're just like, I'm out of ideas. And I'm not even one of those people who won't try new recipes. I'm down to try new recipes all the time. Not so much new proteins or things like that, but I will try new recipes. I'm a little bit picky when it comes to the eating. Not the pickiest member of my family. That award goes to my sister, who's the only vegetable she eats is corn. And you don't have to tell me that's not a real vegetable. I'm aware. But I am a little bit more like meh. I won't eat chicken off the bone. It grosses me out. I'm pretty sure if we were back in pioneer days, I would have died. Like how in the Oregon Trail, you died of, whatever it is, dysentery, or, you failed to forge the river. I would die of pickiness. That's just what I would go from. So now my flowers are all colored, and I'm going to move on to the leaves. I went to, again, just kind of like my go-to green for this. It's more of a yellow green, but I kind of wanted them to pop out from the background. I didn't want to go too dark because there is so much detail in these flowers. There is more dark areas. And so I wanted the leaves to kind of be a little bit lighter. Plus, I love a bright green with my blue. Like, if blue is my boyfriend, green is like my best friend. You know what I'm saying? Just a nice little comfy color. But yeah, so I would be dead if I had to. Just like my dad was telling a story about his aunt, and they had won a turkey. They won a turkey in like some sort of raffle or something. But the turkey was live. It was an alive turkey. And his uncle tells his wife, you're going to stretch this turkey's neck around the telephone pole and I'm going to chop its head off. And I'm like, if I had to slaughter my own meals, I would for sure be dead, because I would never be able to do it. I feel badly for animals that are on the side of the road that have been hit. I would never be able to do it myself. And I have friends that own farms and things, and I do appreciate their service. I'm not going to pretend like I'm a vegetarian. I'm not. I like bacon far too much. But to do it myself, no, I'm a no-go. I probably would be a vegetarian. I would have to survive on chickpeas and berries. I'm not sure what I would eat, but it would not be meat because I would not be able to do it myself. I just don't have it in me, y'all. For the little accents on the perfume bottle, I went gold, as well as the little sprig of flowers that are up at the top. I just thought that would be a nice complementary color to the perfume bottle, like a nice little gold accent, since it's clearly one of those fancy perfume bottles that I can't afford. I figured it would have a gold accent on it, and I could, roll with that. Try to leave it a little bit lighter in the center so that it does appear a little bit shiny. If for some reason that gets away from you, by all means, you could use, some sort of, what are those called? The jelly rollers, like the metallic gold one that I have, that would work as well if you want a little bit of shine. Or you could color it like this and then put on a clear glitter pen. That would work as well. That's all the coloring that we're going to do. It really did go by super fast. And then I'm going to go back in and do the outlining just to make sure that it kind of pops off from the background. I inadvertently created a highlight in the center of my flower because I didn't go over it with the ink blending. It does appear much brighter than the stuff in the background, which honestly I think is like a happy accident and I may use in other cards. I did add some white highlights, to my berries. I'm going to add them to my flowers and to my bottle as well. This really kind of bumps up the look of the dimension. I put the white right next to the darkest portion in my bottle to add in that highlight and really bump up that contrast. I also added some white to the sides of the bottle, where maybe the light would be hitting off of it, and to the tips of my flowers. I was super happy with the way that it came out. Just because, I do, even though I love one layer cards, I do love that look of dimension. It took me a while to figure out if I was going to add any highlights to the flowers. And then once I started doing it and it was breaking up the petals, I really liked it. And so I just committed to it full boat. Because sometimes, you just got to make a choice and live with it. You tell me if you liked it better before or after the little highlights were added. I feel like with carnations and peonies and things like that, like sometimes you do have the white tips, and so it makes sense. Here is that label that we talked about. I was originally going to pop it up on foam, and I decided that I was going to glue it just flat because I was going to pop my sentiment up on foam. Well, it doesn't look as white as I would like. It is still, it doesn't look gray either, and so I just went with it. The sentiment that I chose is a quote from Coco Chanel that says, "A woman should be two things, both, I think it says classy and beautiful," I think is what it says. And then there's another sentiment in that set that says, "You, my dear, are both classy and fabulous." That's what it is. And so I thought that was really cute because my sister is for sure both of those things. And so I put that on the front and then stamped the other one on the inside for her card. I'm going to go ahead and I always have my heat gun in heating up before I do any of my heat embossing, just to cut down on the warping, because I do tend to use them more as labels. So I'm just going to heat that up until it melts and then pop it up on foam to put on the card. So this has been a very kind of ADD all over the place conversation that we've had here today, but hopefully you found something that entertained you. Could you kill a turkey? I could not. We talked about that. We talked about me being a picky eater. We talked about a lot of things. Some random games. Also super fun time. Yeah. There's your little recap. So I did add some, what are these? What are they, people? Answer my question. As if you were in this room with me right now while I'm having this conversation. Rhinestones. I originally went with red. I did not like it. And then so I went back and picked up the clear ones. I don't know why I try to use colored rhinestones. Typically, I don't end up liking the way they look. But here we are. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I genuinely appreciate it. I hope you found something to inspire you, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.